Hello, Russell. Thanks again for being on these great calls with myself, and I just love you having as a host.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. I as for those listening, this is the Veterans Act, and our main focus is really having conversations that impact people, in particular veterans, military people, active service, uh, uh, to act, especially when they come out into the civilian world. Veterans Act stands for Advanced Career Training, and really the bottom line is action. We take on different topics. Um, I've been a civilian my entire life. There's plenty of civilians out here with the um, missions, I should say. Uh, but the military has a particular mission, and that's what Russell and other veterans, but in particular Russell as a co-host, brings with 44 years of experience in the Army. He brings a perspective that uh, only people in the military could understand, and together we're trying to bridge these conversations to help people act in the world. Russell, anything you want to add before we start our topic today?
No, 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 not really. Like again, it's always a pleasure to be a part of this podcast, and always a pleasure to talk with you, Lou. Because I mean, we run the gamut of topics, and I'm sure this one's going to be just as interesting as the other ones that we go forward. So yeah, but most people don't really understand how anybody can do 44 years in the military. But I accomplished that from 1977 to 2021.
Uh, well, this today's topic, it came to me from reviewing some of the other conversations we've had, and you said something a few conversations ago that really it stuck. It stuck great. I think it was definitely transferable to me in the civilian world when you said it. It it created a really open, vast opportunity of conversations that could make a difference when you said it. And that is when you were distinguishing the mission of the military, like the military, the U.S. military, militaries around the world, but the United States military in particular, there's a mission, and you have a mission, and the different uh, bodies of the military might have unique visions and possibilities and actions that they need to take, but there's a mission that the military has. Now, as a civilian, to me, uh, one of the missions is to really maintain, protect, defend, be a deterrent, act uh, uh, in defending the United States of America, like defending the United States of America, defending or being part of NATO, let's say, also defending other democracies around the world, and really to be a deterrent and establish the freedoms that we have in this country as civilians, which I will assert a lot of people take for granted and probably have no idea of the structures in place and what it's taken to live the life that we're living in our time here on the planet. Uh, and when you said that, you didn't say it exactly like that, but you said the mission of the military. It occurred to me, it kind of hit me yet. And here in the civilian world, we have all these missions that are all over the place thanks to the mission of the military. So company A, right? Company A has a mission. Company B has a mission. This state has a mission. That city has a mission. This family has a mission. This football team has a mission. This jujitsu guy has a mission. I have a mission. This couple has. Everybody's got missions all over the place,
Right.
and that's the beauty. That's the beauty of being alive today, for sure in the United States of America and other parts of the world too, where we really can create any possibility we want with our lives. We really can create any possibilities, which brings me to the foundation of being trainable and the Veterans Act, and that is with the education and distinctions available today, uh, anything is possible. Like there's really no reason to live a disempowered life unless you're not being trainable. But where do we stop being trainable? When do we start being trainable? That's a whole other conversation. But today I want to address anger. I want to address anger and hate, and particularly I want to address that because though we've all noticed anger and hate throughout our lives and different people, and I mean, the abundance of the conversation could be all over the place. But I want to try to pinpoint it, and really get an undercurrent where we could have a conversation that could help whoever's listening distinguish anger and hate and transcend it. So I'm going to start with this particular incident that really just got my attention. And that is that I've noticed enough at this point to say that there seems to be a lot of people, or enough people, and one is enough, okay? One is enough, who leave the military and they're angry and upset. And then I've noticed some of these people will get into, let's say, political positions, governance, which is important to me anyway. Governance is important to me. It should be important to everybody. Like I am and do care who's representing and creating laws, and I
Right,
care.
right.
I just care. Some people don't care. I care. Uh, uh, but when you're in government or entering government, uh, and you're from the military, which makes you unique in a certain way, and you're operating from anger and hate, that's not good. That's not good at all. And I've heard enough people say this now, where they say it. Well, being angry is good. Being anger is good. That's how I act. You need to be angry to take action. People don't take action. They're complacent if they're not angry. And I'm going to say that that is completely off, in the sense that that is the lowest level of operating in life. Operating from anger and hate takes no skills. It takes so little skills to take action from anger and hate. It's almost like you have maybe a person hasn't heard this, but when you're operating from anger and hate, which is an emotional state, which is an emotional experience that we all go through, but you're operating at the level of a child, an infant, a toddler. Like if you haven't transcended hate or educated yourself to act beyond hate, by the time you're, let's say, into high school, teenager, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. And we got millions of people operating on this planet, for sure in America, from hate and anger.
Yeah,
That's not good. We have to. Well, I shouldn't say we have to. By the way, you don't have to do anything. You could say angry and hateful your entire existence. Power to you, but you're right to swing your fist, or push violence, physical violence, legislative violence, ends with you. You have no right to get violent with other people.
right.
You just don't. And way too many people are using violence as a form of their communication to get what they want, because they don't like what, let's say, the majority wants. And the majority is not necessarily out there screaming and yelling and being angry and upset and tearing shit down. And this applies to everybody. I don't care who, what, where you are. Anger and hate that create physical violence is the lowest level of existence. So, with that said, I like to tackle that conversation with you. Why are people coming out angry and hateful? I have some thoughts and distinctions, of course, as you do, and I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, you know. I'm sure you even know. I know I don't. I know people who are incredibly skilled with weapons, and the undertone is anger and hate. That's a little dangerous,
Yeah,
potentially. That's for sure. So that's what I like to tackle with you today in some way and distinguish something here. Anger and hate. How do we transcend that? I'll start by saying it's the lowest level. If you're an angry and hateful person, or anytime you're experiencing anger or hate, you're operating at an infantile level, a child, literally a child.
yeah. So, usually when anybody is angry, something hasn't been solved, something hasn't been addressed. Um, and usually when you get down to it, it's something that somebody didn't get. They wanted something and they didn't get it. So they're disappointed. Um, and they have no control over it when they thought they should have had control over it. They should have some say when they didn't have some say over it. Or you know, there was an expectation that wasn't met, period. And if that expectation wasn't met, if you expect something, if you expect to get paid $5 or $10 and somebody gives you $1, you're going to be quite upset. You
Yeah,
know,
I totally
why
right.
why did you give me $1? Well, because I thought that's how much your effort was. Yeah, but I put in a lot of this and I put in a lot of that and I spent a lot of that and I spent a lot of this, and therefore I think I should be paid $5. Yeah, but that's not what I see. And so what I see and what you see are two different things. And because I'm the one that's paying you, I never gave you an expectation. And because I never helped you manage that expectation, no matter what I do or say, you're going to be angry about it because we didn't start off on the same sheet of music. We didn't start off with the same expectation. And so usually when people leave the military and they're angry, there's an expectation that either hasn't been met or there's an expectation that they're looking for when they get ready to transition and they don't know how to get to it.
Hmm.
So, people who are angry and they're in uniform, something has happened either between supervisor or something else, or something has happened. The promotion system isn't working for them. They're being disciplined for something that they did, but they don't agree that they need to be dealt with that way. They need to be either one, two, three. This is their fifth chance, and they still think that they need to need to have just a good talking to, um, and some people, when they enter the military, they already enter angry, or they already enter with an expectation that hasn't been met before they get into the military, and they carry that into the military and they leave with it in the military. You know, you can have an expectation when you were out in the military that certain people of a certain color or of a certain religion or a certain social status should not be where you are and shouldn't do certain things. You may have an issue with women, period. And yet, when you get into the military, you're going to have women over you. You're going to have women you're going to be working with. And if you can't do that, you're already angry because your expectation of what you think the military should be isn't there. You think the military should be all male. It never was all male. If you look back in the
That's
history
great.
books,
That's great. Say that. Say more about that. The military has never been only
no,
male.
it never has.
Never.
You may have had men fighting on the front line, but the military has always had women part of it, whether they were making beds, dressing wounds, or feeding you in the soup line. They've always been a part of the military. They may not have been recognized, but they've
That's fantastic.
always have been part of the military in one shape, form, or fashion. They've they've
That that
they've
that
helped
this just.
and been a
Yeah,
part of
sorry to
it.
cut you off. Yeah, sorry to cut you off because
Yeah.
that I just want to benchmark that for anybody that's out there hating women in the military, not liking women in the military, not thinking that women should be in the military. I could understand the debate of where, what position, what they should be doing physically in the military. I could understand that, but that doesn't give you the right to prevent that, especially if a woman wants to do that. If a person volunteers, especially in the United States, to volunteer army,
Right.
right, which is a whole other topic.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, it's a whole other topic. Uh, um, but their choice, it's, it's yeah, it's their choice.
Well, it is their choice, but because of the way that things are structured, it's not their decision. They may have a choice, but it's not their decision.
It's great, great distinguishing that. Yeah,
So, it's just like recently, and I had, and it's interesting we're talking about this because I had the utmost privilege of working on a staff that when it was decided that women were going to not just be in the military, but they were going to now be allowed to be in combat arms, combat units. And I before this, I mean that subject has always come up. It's always been on the table, but no one ever really addressed it until a few years back. And so the women being in combat units is still fresh, very fresh, very new. But I had the privilege of working on that work group that looked at how women could be a part of the combat units and what type of training would they get. And so the training and doctrine branch of the military called TRADOC um, looked at that and was tasked by the Joint Chiefs of Staff as well as Congress to look at how women can participate and be a part of the Army as a whole, and not just pigeonhole them in certain jobs or certain duties in certain units. Because women were like, well, what is it that he can do that I can't do? And the argument wasn't so much what it is that you can't do that he can do. It's, I don't want you out there because I don't believe it's a woman's place to be out there, and we don't want our women to be in harm's way. Okay, well, but I'm
Okay,
already
I could get
in
it, but
harm's way because I'm in uniform. I may not be in harm's way on the front line, but because the front line is no longer a true front line, I'm in harm's way, period. I could be harm's way with a suicide bomber. I could be in harm's way on convoy, which has been proven. I can be harm's way in a medical hospital and it gets shot up and blown up because there are mortar and everything else. So why is my participation? I can I qualify my M16 or my M4 just like the guy. I qualify my hand grenade throwing just like another male. I have to qualify to wear this uniform just like my male counterpart in basic training. They are not distinctive in what a woman does in basic training or what a male does in basic training. You must be able to fire your weapon and zero it and be able to shoot to kill. And you're practicing throwing some kind of grenade or some kind of projectile, and shoot, move, and communicate. All basic trainees in the Army all receive the same thing. So if you're receiving the same thing, what now disqualifies me from being in a combat arms unit other than me being a woman, and you're calling yourself protecting me from something else? And so the mindset of the male, of the man, and of the men in Congress, and then the men in the Army was that we don't want our, and this is the thinking, we don't want our women out there because we feel we should be protecting them. That's on the surface. What's some of the underlying discussions that you don't hear? Like, I don't want a woman to show me up.
no,
You know,
no, I never, yeah, yeah. That's
I don't want a
I never
woman to
thought of
be
that
in
one, but
charge of me. Right? So you can do the surface stuff all day long, but what's the underlying thing that's really getting you going? And that's where the anger we're talking about and all that other stuff. That's the underlying stuff. All the surface stuff you can always you can always look at and talk about. But what's the big stuff? It's like the iceberg, right? You can see the tip of
yeah,
the iceberg, but really the iceberg is humongous underneath the water, underneath the surface. And a lot of
yeah,
times,
yeah,
the hate is that your expectations haven't been met, or there are new set of expectations that you don't agree with.
yeah, yeah. I could see you know, Jane turned you down in fifth grade, and now you hate women.
Yeah,
I, I'm not
that,
saying
that
that, but
that you know
there's
what?
something
But you
there.
never know.
But
That can
there's
be a
something
set.
there.
That can
There's
be a set because then you can view women a certain way because of your past interaction with women.
and how you were educated. You know, your parents' education or the adults around you at your early stages, especially those first 5 to 6 years, 7 years, are so. You know, people blame the school systems, and like you could blame the school system, but your kids are half baked by the time they get to the school
Yeah, I
system,
mean,
and you
because
baked them.
to your
You
point,
baked them.
yeah, to your point, if a kid, then this is where we also run into the military. So if you were in a very toxic environment in your home, and you watched your dad or you watched your mom's boyfriend or whoever, some male figure, uh, abuse and take advantage of a woman, and it was never ever addressed and was never ever told to you that that was wrong. When you come in the military, now all of a sudden you do something and you can't figure out why you're going to jail for sexual harassment or sexual abuse
Yeah,
or for assault.
yeah. You think it's just cool, it's just the boys playing around, joking,
Yeah,
which that stuff never sat well with me at all. Yeah, I was also raised by a single mom, educated, strong woman, so I've never
yeah,
been. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I can totally get it. I hear men the way they talk about women now and say things, and I'm okay with. I'm actually I shouldn't say I'm okay with it. I'm not okay with it, but I get it. I get it. I have space for it. I have compassion for it. I've laughed at stuff too, but do I? Is it my preference? Do I like it? Nah, not really. Not like like some people like hardcore jokes and comedy and stuff that belittle people. Uh, yeah, it does. It's not my
yeah.
thing,
Well,
but I get it.
and you
It's
know
you're
what?
entitled. You're entitled to it.
That's
But
fine. That's fine until the joke becomes you.
or the jokes becomes violence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the
But
joke becomes
and
violence.
speaking in reference to the comic, everybody's okay with the punchline until they become the punchline.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the
You
truth?
know,
Most people can't be the
right,
punchline.
right, because they get upset. Oh, you were just talking about that guy over there. Why'd you come and start talking about me? Yeah, because you look just as bad or worse than that dude over there, or you wearing something that you know draws attention. You wearing this hot pink shirt.
Yeah. So a lot of wealth in what you said. I'd like to benchmark some things for people to well, maybe these are not benchmarks, but you know, so when you look at females in the military from a civilian point of view, again, civilian point of view, I'm never been in your shoes, and God bless people who've been in physical combat. Uh, but from my understanding, not but negating, just but like another point of an addition. Really, it's not even it's an addition. It's I believe been proven that women uh, have much more tolerance for pain than men by giving birth, for example. Like I don't think a man could ever take their hips spreading out, joints opening up like a woman has to go through when she's having giving birth. So right there alone, I believe it's proven that women have a higher pain tolerance than men do. Putting that aside, from an emotional balancing standpoint, I know a lot of people would say, well, look at, women are emotional and they're not good to be in military and wars. I'm like, maybe, but I'm pretty sure it's been men who have been starting wars and having wars and being in war for centuries. I would assert that women who actually give birth aren't necessarily going to start wars before men who are not giving birth. There's a different relationship to being the mother of a child. I assert that we'd probably have less wars if women were in charge, but that's a possibility. I don't know if there's that's a possibility. And then the other thing that stuck out for me is you already alluded to it that these men who say that they want to protect their women, they don't females, they don't want women in combat, but yet I'm willing to go line by line, guy by guy, politician by politician, people without opinion, one by one, and I could probably assert, if not prove, that they do very little to protect women now. Just the violence that's against women that's out there, to the violence that's against women right there, both physically and legislative. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
They're not fighting for them here now. Uh, and with today's military, I'm gonna say that women can definitely think anything a man can think. That's for sure. That's for sure. So the point and the topic here that we're exploring is anger. So anger is absolutely a very low level, if not the lowest skill set. Anybody that's speaking and acting from anger, from an emotional anger state, uh, I wouldn't call them the most reliable person. Definitely not sure I'd be taking their full advice, take the consideration, but no. What I will say is if you could operate from possibility, from opportunity, from inclusion, from creating something that works collectively, what this country's based on, we the people, democracy, debate, argument, uh, uh, funnel through stuff, but then come out to conclusions that are workable for the whole, not necessarily everyone, but the whole. That takes skills. That takes a lot of skills. Those are the kind of skill sets that are, I think, the most valuable. You know, having a home where there's harmony because everybody's included towards a mission that's consistent. Now, if your home's mission is this and your children are growing up and they're not into your mission, well, you might not have children that are going to be around you for a
Yeah.
long time. And that's, a choice that people get to decide and make. I'm going to bring up a perfect example. I think it's a perfect example. When you look at the politics of what's happening in the world, this recent thing with Canada and the truckers, and a lot of people were cheering for the truckers, and I get the truckers' point of view, etc. But what I find lost. Um, Here's what people who are rooting for the truckers aren't saying. There was 90% to 95% of the population in Canada and the U.S. who were not rooting for the. They did not want this disturbance, and they literally disrupted. I think it was like $300 million of an economy, in labor and work for a long time over an issue about mask mandates and vaccines and things that are, I believe, should be a choice to a certain level. But it's no different than our kids have to get vaccine to go to school to prevent past pandemics that are now handled, viruses, measles, chickenpox. It could go on. Um, so there's a place where we need to elevate our desires for our wants and beliefs based on conversations, based on point of view, based on data, facts, even opinions for that matter, without the physical violence. Because if you're resorting to physical violence, no matter how unheard you are, it's not because you're unheard. It's just not. It's not because you're unheard. It's very clear you're being heard, but you got to start considering that what you're saying is not good for the whole.
Or it's not good at the time.
Perfect. It's not good at the time. What worked 30 years ago, it's not necessarily working today.
Right.
It might, in 30 years from now, it might not work. You bring like when I hear people talk about COVID and we were right. You were right about what? What were you right about? 2 years ago, nobody knew what the hell was going on, other than people who understood, quite frankly, I don't know, science and biology. And this is a pandemic,
Well,
and it's a virus, and it's been going on
the only
forever.
people
The
that
history of man.
understood what was happening were the people in the labs. Everybody else, the only thing that everybody else could at least witness is that somebody got sick and they either lived or they died.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was
And
it. That
yeah,
was it.
my first real awakening to the okay, what's actually happening on the ground was my cousin who was a nurse in New York, and she literally This is no joke. I got people coming in on Wednesday and they're dead on Saturday. I had a friend who I spoke to in February was dead in March. I could go and I had people who got sick all over the place. So I was very clear, and I mean it doesn't sound simple, but I actually studied a little bit of history. I'm familiar that pandemics is not uncommon to the history of
That's
man.
right.
We've had all kinds of things, plagues, forever, and they're going to be around forever. And all a virus is just another organism trying to live on Earth. Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to the club. But to but putting all that to the side, those are there's opinions in what I'm saying. There's some database, some facts, personal experience, but none of that gets handled coming from anger and upset. And 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 if we get anything out of this conversation that for a person listening, it's we don't want to continue distinguishing what has someone be angry, which is again, I'm telling you, the lowest level of education in that moment for sure is when someone's angry. And I'm talking about myself. When I catch myself getting angry, I like to believe I'm trained enough at this point where I start laughing because usually whatever I'm angry about is something that uh, I didn't handle, I wasn't responsible for, I neglected, I don't know anything about, uh, um, quite frankly, being stupid, ignorant, arrogant. And I've raised my daughters, my two beautiful, powerful daughters, to call me out. And if you're a person who is willing to raise your kids to call you out and listen, uh, I commend you because it's a beautiful life. I get to create possibilities, and there's no nonsense. I get also caught when I think or say something, quite frankly, just irrelevant.
Yeah. So let me real quick
Irrelevant. Yeah, yeah.
address a couple of things. So the anger part for someone coming out of the military, it could be uh, the reason why they're angry is because they don't want to leave.
They don't want to leave the
They don't want to
military.
leave the military. Their
Okay.
expectation was I was going to stay in and I was going to retire. Well, the military says based on your performance or based on what blah 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 blah, we don't believe that you need to be in uniform any longer. So we are therefore allowing you to leave. Um, there are people.
So wait. You said we don't say that again because you said, and so we're allowing you
We
to
are
leave, or
allowing you to leave. Correct.
that's a nice way of saying you're
Yeah,
leaving?
yeah, it's a nice way of saying you're leaving. Now they can allow you to leave as an honorable or other than honorable. Um, but if you don't leave under those two conditions, you've done something enough to where the military says you're going to be either put out or you're going to go to jail, and then we're going to put you out.
That's right. So really, the choice is leave honorably or leave dishonorably, and dishonorably could linger for a long
It
time,
certainly
if not the
could.
rest of your life.
It certainly could. I mean, there comes a time to where you can go back to the service and say, look, I'd like to be reconsidered. In the military, I don't believe unless you really done something wrong, really a heinous conduct or crime. Um, uh, the military will be generous enough to move your bad conduct or whatever else to other than honorable, but they will not give you an honorable because you were not honorable at any time during that period of service. So, other than honorable, kind of opens up some more opportunities, but it does not put you on the same level as somebody who actually served with distinction in the uniform. Um, so
Are VA benefits are correlated with if you leave honorable or dishonorable or
yes,
any version of that?
yes they are.
Okay.
Yes they are.
Okay.
To include federal government opportunities as well. So, but so those are some of the reasons that people could leave the service. Other or they're leaving because they're angry with the way that the military is operating. Some people.
Say more about that. Say more
Well,
about that. What do you mean?
I'll give you an example, which I didn't I didn't understand it because in the in uniform even though the military doesn't give you an IQ test, and even though the military doesn't necessarily train you on diversity, there is an expectation that we are an army, we are a group of people, and we operate under certain parameters and certain values that allow us to do the things that we do to protect the country, defend uh, the borders, and essentially, you know, fight this nation's wars. But we had an issue when we had the first black president, and you had people in uniform that were like, "I'm getting out. I'm not working for no black man." Whoa, time out, time out. I know you've had some black supervisors. So, and that commander in chief, you'll probably never ever speak to him in your entire military career. And you'll probably never get anything from him other than if you retire underneath him, you'll get a letter of appreciation and thank you for your service and your commitment to this country. And you may get a certificate from him as well. But you'll never take any direct orders from the President of the United States, because all of those decisions and all of those things that come down are going to come all the way down, and the person that you're going to hear the mouth come out of it from is the person that rates you, your immediate supervisor. But yet we had people that would say, I'm not serving underneath this black president, and they left the military.
And you're saying it in a polite way because I'm sure it was said in all kinds
Oh
of
yeah,
potential
oh
language and
yeah, oh
ways.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So that people have left angry or been angry and have left the military because of all sorts of things. Uh, but what's interesting on the other part of that is that those same people that have left angry, when they see someone else in uniform years down the road, or maybe, it's like, yeah, I was in the military too. Yeah, I should have stayed in, or I should have done something else. You know, so to your point about anger, it also raises regret in your anger of what you did in the service or out of service or on your way out of service or whatever expectation you had. Because I'm quite sure those that left the military because of a black president never had the expectation that a black man would ever be president of the United States.
Yeah, well, they're definitely educated into that, David.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
And
right.
so, but the other thing where you said civilian and military, the military people, when they go into the military, they already know that they are not in charge. They're not the decision makers. The decision makers are absolutely unequivocally pointed out. So when you go into the military, you already know that you're part of a hierarchy that works this way. It will always work this way. And so, if you plan on being in the military, you will work in the manner of which this hierarchy and the process is set up. So, in the civilian world, those things don't exist. They don't exist, and they're not as rigid and set up as a military organization. And so, when people get angry, they feel that they should have had a say about it. They should have had something to do with whatever's going on. But in the military, there's a decision to come down and you have one thing to do: follow the order. Do what you're told to do. If you have a problem with what you're being told to do, let us hear what it is. But at the end of the day, you're going to do what you're supposed to do. Maybe you don't understand why you're being told to do it. If we have opportunity, I'll sit you down and say, well, this is why we're doing what we're doing, and this is how long we have to do it in. That's why you can't go home. But you're in uniform through basic training, advanced individual training, and even in units, you are trained and taught to follow a process so that at the end of the day, what you're actually trained to do and your mission, you will come back home alive because someone is telling you what to do for your own good and not just because they can.
Yeah, there's a chain of command that
There's a chain of command,
works.
and it
It works.
works. In the civilian world, there is no chain of command. Outside of your normal workday, there is no chain of command. But there is a chain of command 24/7 in the military.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because I could see where anger kicks in too, where you're trained in this you're trained in this chain of command structure hierarchy, and then you go into civilian world, and you might be expecting the same consistent, let's say, chain of command. You might be expecting it from orders coming down to you, as well as you giving orders and saying things for people to do. And if people aren't doing what you say to do because you said so, because that's how in the military you say something, you better do it. And then you get involved or try to participate in, let's say, the local school board, or council meeting with other people in the audience, and you're angry that they're just not doing what you tell them to do. Or you go home and you have kids and you're telling them to do something, and you're angry that they're just not doing it what you told them to do because you said so. You got to do it this way because I said so. Woof. That's a recipe for anger and upset.
Yeah, yeah,
It's almost like
yeah,
it's like a cocktail ready to
yeah.
explode. There's a great thing that I've done a lot of training at this place called Landmark Education, and one of the things that they've done around a particular topic around upsets, the way they break it down. This is I've been practicing this for practically my whole life. Uh, I didn't create this, but I love the way they break it down. Where I actually used to write. I used to first wrote this down in a cue card, and I would keep the cue card in my pocket, and I would walk around with it. This is my early days when I was like 24, 25 years old in the mortgage business. I would keep this in my pocket because I learned a lot from this, what I'm going to say next, on how to deal with clients. And I'll share about that because I think this could add value for anybody that's angry and upset out there. So, uh, uh, an, an upset, what is an upset? They break it down into three things. If someone's upset, which could be the prerequisite to be angry, it's a function of an undelivered communication, an unfulfilled expectation, or a thwarted intention. An undelivered communication is kind of pretty easy, where I get upset at my kids because they didn't clean the kitchen, but I never delivered the communication to, hey, you got to clean the kitchen.
Right,
Uh, or I never really got into an agreement, an understanding with them that, hey, you're supposed to clean the kitchen every week. So it's all undelivered communications that need to be resolved. Or they might not be cleaning the kitchen because they're mad at me because I didn't take them to the park the day I told them I would. But then you forget that's what happened, but they're still angry. Undelivered communications is a major one. It goes both ways, not just spoken, but heard and gotten. A thwarted intention is it's pretty easy. I have to. I got to leave. I'm going to go to work out. I'm driving. I get a flat tire. Oh, that's a problem for me. My intention got thwarted by a flat tire. There's a lot of other people driving by. They're not upset. They don't have flat tires. There's a billion people in another country around the world who are not upset about something that we might be upset about here.
right.
It's just it's just a thwarted intention. It's our world. So undelivered communication, a thwarted intention, and an unfulfilled expectation. I expect my politicians to represent me and do as I say. Well, that's silly. That's really silly. Yes, you expect them to represent you. Yes, you expect them to do the best they can. But to do what you say, they have to do what they think is best for the whole based on all the information they get, based on all the things that are happening from their point of view, a lot of which we have no idea is happening. And if you don't like them, then go through the process and vote them out and vote the next person in. Because that's what's happening here. That's the beauty of living in a democracy. That's the beauty of living in America. That's the beauty of having a home that could be collective community in your own house. If you want a dictatorship, there's plenty of places you could go and you will be in a dictatorship environment where you're just told what to do too bad. Because unless you think you're going to go take over a country and become the actual leader, good luck. Go start a company and be the boss of that little environment. You have these opportunities in this country, which is fantastic. But to be upset, you got to break it down because then maybe you could create a possibility. So again, an upset, a thwarted intention, undelivered communication, unfulfilled expectation. If you could dismantle the conversations involved around that, it starts to take the charge out of, okay, what am I upset about here? Which I believe is like taking the air out of being angry and for sure hate.
Yeah.
So you start taking the charge out. Now, the part that people don't like, I shouldn't say people don't like, some people don't like, is the part where you have to be 100% responsible. You got to get that you're the one that has the unfulfilled expectation. You're the one that has the thwarted intention. You're the one that has the undelivered communications. And if you come from there, from that power, you could have any conversation with anyone, anywhere, anytime about anything and actually stay in the conversation. And we call it, I call it the 5 A's in the professional parenting and in being trainable, that if someone can't have I could tell when someone's dysfunctional right away, really, because if you can't have a conversation with anyone, anywhere, anytime, anyhow, about anything, and actually stay in the conversation without throwing a tantrum, without getting upset. We've covered this on other calls, on other trainings. Uh, it's dysfunctional. It's dysfunctional. And if you're committed to being a functional person, you got to be able to have the conversation without anger and upset. So when people would say, "Well, what can I have it with?" Well, you could have it with possibility, with opportunity. And when people leave again, I'm talking from a civilian perspective, what it looks like to me on this side of the world. I find a lot of people will leave the military, even college for that matter, but the military, and they come into this world out here of possibilities and opportunities. And like we've said, they're getting taken advantage of, completely taken advantage of. They're not tapping into the possibilities and opportunities. It's almost like, based on what I'm kind of hearing you were saying, I could see where they automatically try to find something that fits what they're used to, which is a chain of command, and they think they're going to be rich in a chain of command, let's say. Good luck. You're not going to control your time in a chain of command. You're not going to control your potential financially in a chain of command. You could learn in a chain of command, but eventually you have to go into the world of possibility and opportunities to make the kind of financial gains you want and control your time.
Right.
You can't control your time and be in a structure that controls your time. It doesn't work.
Right.
So hence, I could see the anger and the upset. Uh, I mean, it's getting clearer and clearer as we're having this conversation for myself, where I could see why the great men and women who leave the military and they leave it and they don't complete that mission, that structure required for that mission, and they get into the world of civilian where there's millions of missions all over the place. And if you don't like any of the missions that are out here, guess what? You could create one.
Yeah.
Literally create one. You can create whatever you
That's
want.
right.
Just create it.
That's right.
But you have to have a possibility and
And there
opportunities,
are people
which
that
is
have done that.
completely
They're
all the time. Yeah, we're not saying anything that
right.
doesn't happen.
Right. Exactly.
It happens all the time. Uh, I think our goal, I know our goal is to give that opportunity to people to have it, for more people to have it, because all it's missing is the distinction.
Yeah.
But you gotta. I hate when I say you gotta. You don't gotta. You could just keep doing what you're doing. Quite frankly, don't change at all. Just keep the violence, physically and legislative, out of the picture, because that's where it gets the pushback that's happening out here in the world.
Yeah.
Nobody's interested in anybody's physical violence. or legislative
Yeah.
violence. That's I'll assert is that's what this country was. The laws that are here, we're a nation of laws, are designed to keep that in place.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we do have people who abuse the laws and create laws that are abusive,
Well, that
or
could
having
also
yeah,
be part of, when we're talking here, sometimes anger is manifested because of somebody's fear.
excellent topic. Fear,
Yeah.
fear. So this. What's the source of fear? I'll get right to the point and say it's education. But if you have fear because you haven't distinguished something, you're not checking things out because there's fear that's appropriate, but for the most part, we've collapsed fear with anxiety. We've collapsed fear with concerns. Feared with lack of knowledge, lack of training, that gut feeling. Oh my God, I'm scared. Well, good, but are you prepared? you, it's like fear I mean, yeah, there's
So what would you attribute someone that has the fear of not being in control of their work environment or their home life or just control period, and because they don't have the control, the fear of not having control makes them angry.
yeah. So so what's the question? I got this the context. What's the
So
question?
you know people who have guys I've run across who have the fear of working for a woman, but it manifested into anger. I'm not working for no woman. Well, why aren't you working for a woman? Because I don't want her to tell me what to do. What are you really afraid of? Are you really afraid of what? What are you angry about? What's the underlining of your anger that would make you say you don't want to work for a woman, or you don't want to work for um, a person of color, or you don't want to work for um, LGBT. You don't want to work for a reason, but the only thing you can say is you don't want to work for them because you don't want them to be in control of you. Because to work for someone is to allow someone to direct you into something, to give you direction, to tell you what to do. It's simple. So
Sure.
if you are afraid of that, why are you afraid of that? What have you learned that would bring about a fear of someone telling you what to do or having control where you feel that you are no longer in control?
Yeah. So so you're asking how to distinguish that? Like, what would I tell someone?
Yeah, because I mean, there are people who are angry because somebody did something, or they're angry because they're afraid of something and they don't know how to deal with it other than being angry about it.
That's good. That's good. I could offer a lot on that, and for the spirit of this call, I'll say a couple of quick things from uh, obviously my personal experience and experience with others, and having kids and working for many people in many different areas of life. Uh, t- um, uh, one of the things that I do with my kids uh, is I literally will always ask them, "Where did you learn that? Whatever that is,
Hmm.
you learn that." And for a while they would say, "Well, I don't learn it from any. It's just who I am." And now I know that I'm up against the world with my kids, but I did have them for the first couple of years in a cocoon, if you will, uh, and then in the world. So I always knew to give them distinctions. That was what the whole professional parenting was about. How do I give them the distinctions to go handle the blows of life? Because you're never going to protect them from all the blows. You're not going to protect them from getting knocked down, but I can give them the skills to get back up.
Right.
I can give them the skills to deal with the blows powerfully and learn, always be learning, hence, being trainable, let's say. Um, so I would always ask them that, where did you learn that? So if an adult came to me with that same conversation, the first thing I'd probably ask them, first of all, are you committed to being a functional person? What do you mean? I mean, are you committed to being functional, like fully functional, like a practice? Because you never get there, but you get the practice. Are you interested in being a fully functioning person? And they usually say, yes, no, or maybe, right? Well, if they say no, I go, well, we really don't need to talk anymore because what you're doing is working for you. I don't know how it's working for anybody else around you, but if you're committed to actually transcending that, you got to be willing to have a conversation that you haven't had yet. I guarantee you just haven't had the conversation and you're missing the distinctions that would have you transcend that. It's okay, I'm committed to, I want to have to the conversation. I am committed to transforming this or transcending it, or I want to be a functional person. Okay, great. So let's just get right to the chase. And this depends on who you're talking to, right?
Right.
Because different people at
Right.
different stages of life.
Right.
But I would say, when somebody says, I don't wanna, I don't feel like it, nobody tells me what to do, that's an infantile conversation. Like you really have to, it's useful to understand and note that that's like a third grader talking. 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. It starts there, it manifests in those early grades, but it starts there. I don't wanna. I don't feel like it. Nobody tells me what to do. Those are fundamentally like the first lines of sentences that we learn. Hey, you throw a tantrum, give me my food. You know, I want my nipple. Whatever the thing is that people, "Eh." And if we don't get educated out of that, if we don't educate ourselves out of that, you become an adult and you're like that. All you got to do is look at the news, look at it's all over the place. There's a lot of people in grown ass bodies, great skills in one area of life, but still living out the emotional intelligence of infants, of toddlers.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Just like they lie and they think that nobody knows that they're lying. They 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 lie and they think nobody knows that they're lying. Or I do this joke. And by the way, this it's something that will come up for us forever until it doesn't. So one of the things that comes up for me, and when it comes up, I just check it or I turn it into a joke. So I'll be driving, and my daughters and I we laugh at this. But anytime the GPS says make a left turn, I'll go, don't tell me what to do. And we crack up because they get it. They get it.
Oh.
Stop telling me what to do. So it's kind of, I turn it into a joke. I don't feel like it. I don't want to.
Well, you know what? The GPS should come back and say, "Okay, so I guess you don't want to get to your destination."
Oh, they keep going.
Yeah.
See, well, that did you, buddy.
Yeah.
So you have to find the humor in it because the impulse is going to be there, especially if you're a person who's venturing into this conversation now for the first time and a meaningful way where you really do want to practice being a fully functioning person. Hence, or a veteran with advanced career training, you actually want to act and fulfilling these goals and these lifestyles and these objects and these things that you see people have. The only reason they have it is because they have distinctions that you don't have. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no other secrets. There's distinctions that they have in a certain area of life that you don't have. Just like you have distinctions in this particular area of life that they don't have. So here you are now. Now what? Do over.
Yeah.
Start
Yeah.
over. And but you have to do the work. Like you and I could take someone to the edge of language. We could give them the information. We could tell them where to get it, etc. But they have to do the work. There's no such thing as a quick fix meme, Reddit, done life. It doesn't exist. And people are so hung up on this impulsive feed me now, instant gratification that then they're angry every day because it's not happening fast enough for them. They need to have the control. It's a great saying it's a great saying in the stock market, and I'm nowhere near a stock expert. I know some guys are phenomenal at it. I'm not one of them. But I love this saying, and that is the stock market is really just patient people taking money from impatient people.
I like that. I like that.
It opens up a lot when you hear that,
It
right?
does. It
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
It does.
yeah. Another saying that I like that I use and I practice in my sports, particularly jujitsu. Actually, I practice it more and more everywhere. But I really learned it after practicing jujitsu, and it took me 4 years to finally go, oh. And then I started applying it everywhere. It's like, oh. And I'm still like, it's like, whoa. If I can't do it slow, I can't do it fast. And a lot of people try to live life fast, and they never lived it slow.
Yeah.
And that starts with our education and our vocabulary and the things we know. So you gotta almost go back to being a child when you first learned how to talk, and start really getting how much you live a life, not you personally, but how we live a life that's like, I don't wanna. Nobody tells me what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to control everything.
Yeah.
My way or the highway. This is the way I've always been.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anger gets results. You know how many people anger gets results?
For
Anger
who?
gets results. A lot of, well, in the world, anger gets results.
For,
There's a lot of people who, when they're angry, a lot of people around her, oh, don't be angry, and they go solve their shit. And it starts as a child. You know how many parents, the kids get angry, and the parents are like, oh, don't be angry. Oh, don't be upset. Oh, let me help you do that. This I've got caught up in that,
well,
but
yeah,
I've also
and or they will completely ignore the act that the kid is doing, and
yeah, that's another
and
way that could
yeah,
be not good or good.
yeah, yeah. Well, just let him just let him have his tantrum and let him get it out of his system.
Yeah,
No, no,
we,
they don't get it out of his
and
system.
well, I don't know what they do, but I know that if you don't give them distinctions to handle it, it'll stay in their system forever.
Yeah, yeah,
It just looks different. So, for example,
yeah,
it just ended like so. I've my daughters. By the way, if you ask my daughters, what's your dad's job, they'll say, "Oh, his job is to make sure that we're fully functioning, self-determining people." So anytime I'm talking to you, anything I'm coming from, love, upset, whatever you call it, you might look whatever battle to you, I'm a stand that you become a fully functioning, self-determining person as a practice, because you never get there.
yeah,
And there's some things in life that you just have to understand you're never going to complete until you die. That's staying healthy, how you handle your economics, your habits, and for sure, your way of speaking and your way of being and your emotion. It never ends. It doesn't end until you die.
yeah, yeah,
So to go full round and address the question, I would tell someone, I would ask them first, are you committed to transcending it? Are you committed to being a fully functioning person? Because if you're not, I'm sure you've already wasted a lot of people's times in life. Here's a book. Read this book.
yeah,
I, my time is. I'm not going to waste my time trying to help you do something that you're not really committed to. Makes no
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, and I think the word control is misused and is overrated on how we do what we do, because as you were talking I wrote something down here and I said, do you really lose control when you allow yourself to grow? And so, you know
Say it again, because so do you really
do
lose
you really
control?
lose control when you allow yourself to grow?
Yeah, if anything, it's kind of the irony. It's if anything, you might be getting the actual control you need. It's like it's interesting.
Yeah, so like I said, it's overrated because as a young kid, you're told you should control your own destiny. You should be in control of your own life. You should be in control of your own career. You should be in control of your own household. And
I see where you're going with that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
we,
it's an overused
yeah,
word,
it's an overused word, as
out of context too.
yeah. And so, to your point about putting things in its proper context and the proper perspective and being trained specifically on how things are supposed to or should work in a trainable environment, quite frankly you're always in control because you're always making decisions about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and how you're going to receive it. you learn a certain way, so you're in control of how you're learning. You listen a certain way, so you control in how you're listening. You speak, so you're in control of how you're speaking. What you're not in control of is how someone else receives it. So then what you then do is you don't worry about that piece, because then that's where the in some cases, in many cases, that's where the anger comes in, because your your sphere of control does not go beyond you.
Yeah, yeah,
It can't.
yeah, and yeah, 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 yeah. The only thing you can do is, so I communicate something to somebody. They're not getting it the way that I want them to get it. They're doing whatever they're doing back. So I could continue to master ways of speaking and being with them until I could speak to them in their language where they understand and they get what I'm trying to get across, is saying in their language. Because in my language, it's not working until I have my language become their
Yeah,
language.
it could be as simple as take out the trash. I don't want to take out the trash. Okay, take out the garbage. Well, I don't want to take out the garbage. Okay, well, take out the bag that has the stuff in it that smells bad. Oh, yeah, because I don't want that stuff smelling up in it. Yeah, okay, I'll take it out, because yeah, because now it's not garbage, it's not trash, it's an odor. And you don't want that thing in your nose, you don't want it in the house. So I'll take it out. No
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, I could see. Yeah, and I could keep going. Try to take it out. You want rats in your room? You
Yeah.
want? Yeah, it could go
Yeah,
on
it
and
can
on
go
and
on
on
and
and
go
on.
on and go on and go on. Or it's not so much take out the trash, it's would you take out the trash? Or
Yeah,
please take out the trash. And when
yeah,
you
that's good.
hit the person's, like you said, when you hit their language, the language could be, when you have time, please take out the trash, as opposed to
Yeah,
take out the trash. Because take out the trash, some people may be like, okay, you want me to take it out right now. So because you're making a command, you want it done right now. And so, after a while, you learn to give people some room in that, so that they don't feel like you've just taken something and just making them do it. You're giving them some decision making spots in there by saying, hey, listen, when you get an opportunity, can you take out the trash, or can you take out the trash before the end of the night?
yeah, yeah. And I could hear the other side going, "Don't tell me what to do. Stop telling me what to do. My whole life is telling me what to do. I don't do. I do what I want. Nobody tells me what to do, and that's it." And then 20 years later, they leave and they hate their parents because I just wanted to. I don't want anybody to ever tell me what to do. And then they join the military and they're told exactly what to do, and, and then they go into the civilian world and like, oh, but nobody's telling me what to do. What do I do?
So, so here's the other thing to that. Okay, so you don't want to be told what to do, but you'll listen to your girlfriend.
Yeah, so you listen to one person but not another.
Right.
Yeah, that's the whole. Yeah, yeah.
So is it really you don't want to be told what to do, or it's the person that's telling you what to do you got a problem with? And then now, why do you have a problem with the person? Is it because they're male, they're female, they're what is it? What is it?
Yeah, what's the reward? Well,
Yeah,
girlfriend, you get this reward.
yeah. So yeah,
Job, you get that reward. So it's a really it all swirls around. Okay, it's our own personal. Again, are you willing to be fully functional and have all these conversations until you find the combination, like a locked boom, that brings you back to being self-determining versus determined by other things. Either you live a life where you're self-determining, because if you're not self-determining, which ultimately you're always self-determining, but are you self-determining by possibility, opportunities, things that are presented to you that are awesome and
right.
available, or are you self-determining from just hate, action, anger? It's like this other world of impulse and
Yeah, yeah. And what I
again,
like about
power.
what you what where we're going with uh the self-determining individual, the person, is that that process is not connected to anything. It's not connected to the values. It's not connected to how you feel. It's not connected to a belief. It is being open to be able to have a conversation about anything at any time, in any place, and anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Anyhow, without throwing a tantrum, without being violent,
Right,
without being angry, with
right,
and to
right.
actually
Because
communicate.
some people can't
And
have a conversation with you based on their values.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they have to, yeah. And then it doesn't matter what else you talk about because it's their values that are possibly like the undercurrent of
Right.
their hate and anger. But if you actually dissected someone's values, also learned,
Well, yeah. I mean, what isn't? I mean, you come as a baby, which is a clean slate. It's what people
yeah,
fill you up with and start writing your story so that you can live it out. Um,
yeah,
I heard a great
yeah, yeah,
quote. I forget who it was by, but anyway, I don't own it, but it was it says we come in as individuals, or come in the world as individuals and unique, but we leave as copies because we leave the world by living someone else's life or how their expectation of how we should be doing something in the life that we have, in the life that we're living. So, but those
yeah. A little,
values that are brought into the military, sometimes they clash because of the values that you have when you come into the military and the values that the military expects everyone in uniform to live under and exercise and practice. And sometimes that you get angry because those values are expecting you to lay your values aside. So if I don't
yeah,
want to work with women, but in the army, that's all I'm going to work with at one point or time or another, I either have to set that value aside or be angry anytime I have to work for a woman.
yeah. That's you remind me of maybe off point, but when I was in high school, I took 4 years of typing class, and here I was, like all star athlete, all state, all that stuff, and but I was in typing class. I was like computers and the beginning of computers when I was first coming out, so I just like typing class.
Yeah.
And all my friends said, "What are you doing in typing class? It's all girls." And I would just smile. I go, "Yeah." it's like, it's like, yeah. And I learned how to type. How useful is that today, right?
Very useful.
Yeah,
Very
I say that jokingly because ultimately, again, I grew up with a single mom, so my perspective, uh, I empathize with these guys who have whatever perpetual issues with women at all ages, female energy, let's say, at all ages, uh, where I'm like, you know, to each their own, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's great. It's great. I want to kind of try to benchmark and bookend this, so because we're on this point here. So, how do you solve these anger issues for these people that are angry out there and upset, or you're around people that are angry and upset? Ultimately, if you're around people who are angry and upset, look, obviously you could just leave. See ya. Eliminate them from your life. But eventually you'll probably be all alone because people are upset and angry. If you're upset and angry about people who are upset and angry, that's kind of silly. But you're upset and angry about people who are upset and angry.
Yeah.
I'm not upset and angry about people who are upset and angry. I do have concerns about it. I do want to offer them opportunities. So I'm the guy who likes to stay there in the face of someone being angry and upset and give them tools and have conversations, ideally in their language, to help them upgrade whatever they have going on to get past or through or transcend their upset and anger.
Yeah.
So I won't necessarily tell somebody, hey, by the way, let me tell you how to distinguish an upset. It's an undelivered communication. It's a thwarted intention. It's an unfulfilled expectation. It's, I don't get it. I don't say that because that's like, what the hell are you talking about?
Mm.
Excuse my language there. But I will say things like, so you were expecting something. What happened? Why were you expecting that? Well, did you say anything to them? Is there something they're not hearing? Are you speaking to them in their language? Oh, so you got a flat, huh? Well, that stinks. Did you have a can? Like, I have one of those fix a flat things, cans, where I always actually gift them to some people every once in a while. I say, I noticed you don't have one, you should take it. And I just buy another one because if you ever get a flat, they're really handy
Mm.
versus having to change a flat. Just smart to have. If you want to protect the women in your life, make sure they all have fix a flats in their in their car. So I've taken on, and I've taken this on for 35 years of my life, like a conscious practice
Right.
of always learning how can I speak in that person's world to help that person transcend their anger and hate and still go produce the result. This is not about hate. I want to change that. I'm now not going to want to change it because I'm not angry and upset anymore. No, I just know that people, just like with kids, will respond better if I'm not screaming and yelling at them or threatening them with violence. They could actually hear what I have to offer versus hate. Dude, you're threatening to kill me. You're saying that, I will die to the end to have this go my way. And this is my country. I go, I get it, but this country is a democracy and 95% of the people don't agree with you. So you're going to kill 95% of the people? Because you just happen to be the loudest group because people don't want to deal with adults throwing tantrums? It's one thing kids throwing tantrums. Actually, even then it's questionable.
Yeah, we're running. We run into that. So,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
and
a toddler throwing a tantrum is understandable. A infant, I want food, is understandable. But once you start getting into the elementary school slash high school, ideally anything after that, throwing tantrums, getting angry and upset as a way of communicating, that is like 1930s, 19, that is so outdated. It's like, dude, have a
yeah, it's
conversation.
outdated, but unfortunately, it doesn't stop, and it's not something that also. I mean, so the military has a name for it, I'm sure, even in the civilian world. But I mean, and I don't even know who coined that phrase in the first place. But anyway, um, you know, the toxic person or the toxic environment,
Toxic, sure,
you know,
toxic
they
people.
don't. That's of course, that's not allowed in the military. That is,
Yeah,
it
well,
was
rightly
at one
so.
time, because they thought that that was effective. It's not. It's not effective. It's
Yeah,
not effective
yeah,
at all. And
yeah.
toxic relationships, environments have actually, unfortunately, people in the military can't see their way out because they think they're stuck somewhere. And what's nice about in the military, you can rotate an assignment, or the person that's creating a toxic environment, they could be leaving as well. But that's people in uniform. The difference between people in the in the government who are civilians, they can be in that same job for years and be in a toxic environment for years. But the military doesn't tolerate it for two reasons. One, you can't lead under that. And two, you can cause problems when problems shouldn't be existing when you're in combat.
Yeah, well, it's not a good time to get toxic.
No, no, no. Ranting and raving at somebody, uh, just prior to a patrol or just prior to going out and go doing something, and the last thing on their mind was you, as opposed to the concept of operation, and all those other things that's important to their own survival and their team coming back, can cause, it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, the mission, the mission,
Right.
the
So
mission,
people
the mission.
leave the military, have left the military angry because of an unresponsive or a toxic environment that they didn't feel that they had control in over, and they couldn't do anything about. So the best thing for them to do was to get out of the military.
Yeah. And not realizing that maybe they were the toxic one.
Either they were the toxic one, or they could not get out from underneath it.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it happens. Marriages. How
Yeah,
many marriages
yeah,
finally break
yeah.
up because
So then what
it's
do
like
you
people
know?
are
So now
committed
you
to.
got a vet. So now you got a veteran who's leaving. They're angry, but they're not angry how we think they're angry. They're angry because no one did anything while they were in the service.
Yeah,
And that's usually it's unfortunately it's women mostly that have run into those. I mean, there are men who have run into that as well, but usually women. Or you get the guy who or gal who was very angry because the army did not see fit to promote them, and
sure.
and so now
Expectations.
they're leaving angry because they thought they should be promoted. um, and it's hard for everybody, because it's hard
Yeah,
for your supervisor to tell you, well, you know what, it's not me who didn't promote you, it's the army who's looking at promoting you or did not promote you. you know and you watch other people get promoted in your group. You're not promoted, you're not promotable anymore. So now the military says, well, we're not going to put you out, you can stay, but you're not promotable anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. That's the cards of life too, right? It's Jesus. Well, the beautiful thing about the civilian world is if you're not promotable, you could create something and promote yourself.
yeah, that's the great part about it. But being in the military, the only way you can do that is to leave the military to create something that you can do that would uh, value, or you could place value on, that says, I will no longer be undervalued or feel undervalued because of the way I'm being seen or what I've done in the military. Now that I'm out, I can now create my own value through either, being a mortgage loan officer, originator, or I can create more time by being that, because I didn't have any time being underneath, you know, uh, that hierarchy, because I got up at 6 dark 30 and I went to bed at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, only to get up and do the same thing every single day at this one place, every single day for 3 years or however long. And
Yeah,
it's and then I had to listen to my family say, you don't care enough about us to spend more time with you. Well, my assignment is the one that is dictating my time. So as an outcoming veteran, someone is leaving the military, how do you capture, or what are we going to do to help you capture your time and the value of the things that mean a lot to you, so that you can spend more time with, or create that environment that says, even though it didn't exist in the army, it can exist here. It didn't exist in the Navy, it can exist out here. It didn't exist in the Marine Corps, but it can exist out here. It didn't exist in the Air Force, but it can exist out here. And here's how it can exist, either by being an MLO or by being something else. But the basics of the whole thing is that if you're trainable and you would be a fully functional person, you can create that environment that values and is connected to your skill set, that will get you to the point where you feel good about yourself and you're not angry anymore.
it's fabulous. It's fabulous. It really is. There's so much richness in what you said. The thing that sticks out a lot is, to step back and separate your values, your skill sets, your emotional state, your functionalities, the structures that you've been in. It's almost like you have an opportunity to reinvent yourself with an incredible wealth of experience, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely.
Incredible wealth of experience, but you have to reinvent yourself. But you can't take that all of that military mission, military mission,
Right.
and try to fit it into the world of different missions that's out here.
Right.
Because all the missions that are out here, probably none of them are the military's mission. They benefit from the military's mission, but they're not the military mission.
Right.
And most people out here don't have the skill sets, the discipline that you're indoctrinated in, or at least an attempt to, appropriately so, in the military.
Mm. Yeah.
It's excellent. So it goes. Here's what I hear as a way to wrap this up. It just goes to, at the end of the day, hate and anger, lowest level of skills to practice,
Yeah.
and 100% self-inflicted. And most of all, if you're a person who's say that you're motivated by hate and anger, short of guaranteeing, I'm going to guarantee that most of the people in the world of producing results have little to no space to really hear what you got to say uh, uh, in a meaningful way.
Right.
Because operating from fear, anger, threats, violence, all those things that might have worked for you as a toddler, or screaming at somebody because you were just the bully or the big guy or the guy with the bigger guns or whatever, uh, it's just not going to work in the United States of America population. So you really got to cut it out and upgrade the conversation. Upgrade. The education is available.
Right.
That's for sure.
Right.
And if, by the way, if you don't believe me, ask the people around you, not the ones who agree with you.
Right.
Ask the people who don't agree with you.
Right.
See what they have to say.
Right. Right.
On that note, any last words, Russell?
No. Nope. This is as always. These are great conversations, and um, we always want it to lead to, as you said in the past, to allowing those that are going to be listening to us and working with us in the future to be able to get something that's going to be valuable for them when they transition from the military, because that those are the ones that we want to be able to give them back what they think they've lost, right? Time or whatever that is. And one of the great ways to get control of your time is to get into something that gives you that. And being a mortgage loan officer or mortgage loan originator in MLO gives you that time, gives you that ability to get up in the morning. Maybe you don't start it at 7:30 in the morning. You start at 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, or you start when it's
Whatever you're
important
great.
enough to where you're working the process so that you can get it going, so that ultimately you can make someone else's dream come true by putting them in a home or putting them in some property that's going to give them, lifelong pleasure, or whatever it is, whether it's investment property,
Yep.
resident or commercial property, whatever it is. But you gain that freedom to be able to say when, where, and how. And
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
coming from the military, that's a big deal, because all of the five W's belong to somebody else. Now, leaving the military, doing what we do, now those five W's belong to you.
What are the five W's?
Who, what, when, where, and how.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
sometimes why. Or I should say, who, what, when, where, and why, and sometimes how. You know. But
Awesome.
the five
Awesome.
W's, the who is you, the when is whenever you need to, the what is MLO, mortgage loan office originator, doing the mortgage business, and why is because you want to be in control of your time.
Yeah, and make money
and
consistent
make
with your
money
skill set.
consistently doing it. And how much time you put into it and how much effort you put into it is actually commensurate to the money that you make.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much.
So,
Uh, on that note, release your anger, my friends. Let it go. It's outdated. It doesn't work anymore. I'm gonna wrap this up here.